"What is all this?" I asked, bewildered, as I noticed numerous bags piled up at the entrance. "I've decided to live with my mom since you don't take care of the housework," Samuel replied coldly. "You made this decision without even consulting me?" I exclaimed, indignation clear in my voice. "This is my house. You have no right to complain about my decisions." My husband snapped, his voice dripping with anger. "Since I'm the one paying for the remittances and living expenses, I believe I do have a say," I retorted sharply. "It's better with Mom here, so you need to leave," Samuel declared firmly. His cold response stunned me, but I managed to remain composed. "Fine. I'll leave this house," I replied calmly, a small smile tugging at my lips. Little did my husband and mother-in-law know what my leaving would truly mean for them. My name is Vanessa, a 32-year-old office worker. I met Samuel through a blind date arranged by a friend. He was bright and sociable, and we quickly got along, got married, and now it's our 5th year of marriage. We don't have any children yet. Samuel had been living with his mother until we married, but upon marrying, we built a new house on his family's property. It was Samuel's suggestion at the time of our marriage. Because I'm worried about my mom living alone. I want to be near her, but I also want our newlywed life to be just the two of us. So I think this is the best, Samuel had explained. But won't there be a mortgage for building the house? I wondered. The payments for the house can be fully covered with the inheritance left by my dad, Samuel assured me. So there's no need for a mortgage. The house will be in my name, and there's no cost for the land either. I think it's fine if we just repay in the form of monthly support for my mom. What do you think? He suggested. I hesitated. Is that okay? Aren't you worried about your mother's livelihood? We'll be supporting her, and she has her part-time job income and her pension, so it's fine, he reassured. Okay, that's reassuring, I agreed, and Samuel enthusiastically added, furthermore, when you work late, my mom might help with the housework. That will be a help to you, right? Even though we would live in separate houses on the same property, I was filled with hope at the thought of enjoying our newlywed life and building our dream home together. Moreover, getting support with housework during busy times seemed ideal. However, I would later bitterly realize how naive this thought was. The beginning of our marriage was bliss itself. We were both busy with work, but the housework wasn't much, and our new house was clean and easy to maintain. My mother-in-law was also busy with her part-time job and didn't come over often. For shared living expenses, we split them between my husband and me. But one day, Samuel brought up a new proposal. I'll take care of all the household expenses. So can you make the regular transfer to my mom? I want you to transfer it to her bank account every month, he said. I was taken aback. What? How much will it be? Maybe about $1,500 per month, Samuel replied. Upon recalculating, I realized that $1,500 was less than the previous amount. So I decided to secretly send $2,300 a month without telling Samuel. The monthly $2,300 took up a large part of my salary, but other living expenses, like utilities, groceries, medical bills, and clothing, were significantly higher. So in reality, my husband bore the greater burden. Samuel's salary went into a shared account, from which I made the transfers, and the remaining amount was added to our savings. This method worked well for a year, but as my mother-in-law quit her part-time job and began to visit more frequently, things started to go awry. I'm getting old, so I decided to quit my job and rest, she announced one day. Samuel replied warmly, That's okay, Mom. You don't have to push yourself anymore. We're here for you. Thank you, Samuel. You're always so kind, she said with a smile. At first, it was a pleasant interaction between mother and son, but then, looking around the house, she remarked, It seems you haven't been cleaning properly. Look, there's dust accumulating in every corner. This is something I can't overlook. I apologized. I'm really sorry. I've been so busy with work recently that I haven't been able to keep up with the housework. That's just an excuse, she retorted coldly. You're living in Samuel's house, so you should at least do the basic housework. And about cooking, I've heard you often take shortcuts. Is that true? I often prepare simple meals when I come home late from work, but I still try my best, I explained. Maybe it was a mistake to choose you as Samuel's wife, she said icily. After all these years of marriage, the fact that you still don't have children is also an issue. I thought to myself that the fact we don't have children may not necessarily be my fault, but arguing back would only lead to more conflict. Originally, the agreement was that my mother-in-law would help with household chores during tough times when we started living together on the same property. However, it seems both Samuel and my mother-in-law have forgotten that promise. Anyway, when my mother-in-law is around, her unpleasant attacks are constant, so I've chosen to ignore them. Amidst such circumstances, a bigger problem befell me. The balance in our joint account was visibly dwindling. The problem was that Samuel's salary hadn't been deposited for 3 months. "What does it mean that your salary hasn't been deposited?" I confronted him. "Oh, about that," Samuel began reluctantly. What he said next was truly shocking. "I quit my job and have been looking for a new one." I stared at him in disbelief. "You quit your job? And it's terrible not to tell me something so important," I exclaimed indignantly. "Yeah, sorry," he said sheepishly. "I really feel bad about it. My boss was very strict, never-ending nagging, even for minor mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, right?" According to him, a mistake he made caused the company a significant loss. Normally, such mistakes would warrant a warning from a boss, but he didn't seem to acknowledge his fault. I thought to myself that I would be troubled if I were his boss. But since he had already quit, I felt we needed to discuss what to do next. "Is there any prospect of finding a new job?" I asked. "The problem is, I can't find a company that matches my skills," Samuel admitted. "At this stage, shouldn't you look for a company that will hire you even if the conditions are lower?" "We can't afford to be picky right now, can we?" I pressed. "No, I want to choose carefully for my next job, where I plan to stay until retirement," he insisted. "But what about our finances?" I questioned, confused. "You work too, so you can support us a bit, right?" Samuel replied nonchalantly. It seemed his opinion wouldn't change no matter what, so I decided to endure until he found a new job. But our household income had halved. After excluding the regular remittances to my in-laws, the amount left was meager, forcing us to dip into our savings. In reality, there's hardly anything left, so I decided to increase my working hours to boost my income a bit. Fortunately, my workplace values my abilities and readily agreed to my requests. However, when I returned home late, my mother-in-law was often lying in wait. "Why has it come to this?" she said. "I can't believe a daughter-in-law doesn't do any housework." "I'm sorry, it's because of work," I replied, trying to explain. "Making excuses and going out to play?" she continued, ignoring my words. "And then telling Samuel to give you more money?" To which I retorted, "I need the money for living expenses and remittances. My salary alone is not enough." Upon hearing this, my mother-in-law's anger became evident. "What? Complaining about just $2,300 remittance? Living in Samuel's house for free and neglecting household chores? Unbelievable," she exclaimed indignantly. Taking the amount of $2,300 lightly was incomprehensible to me. It's the money I earned with hard work, I thought. My mother-in-law seemed to take the monthly remittances for granted and had lost sight of their value. "Because you don't do the housework, I have to, or Samuel suffers," she continued to complain. "It's tough because of such an incompetent daughter-in-law." Although my mother-in-law took a domineering attitude, she often relied on ready-made meals from the supermarket and only did laundry for herself and Samuel. The kitchen was always a mess with dirty dishes everywhere. When my mother-in-law cooked dinner, it was only for herself and Samuel, never for me. She'd usually just tell me to eat whatever was left over. When I got home from work, Samuel was always relaxing on the sofa in front of the TV, unresponsive even as I faced harsh words from my mother-in-law. My affection for my husband gradually faded. His job search was not progressing at all. "Hey," I said, trying to get through to him, "if this continues, our savings will run out. Can't you do a part-time job to contribute a little to our household expenses?" "What part-time job?" Samuel glared at me sharply. "This house is in my name. It's mine. You're just living here and can't even take care of me properly, so it's only natural for you to pay the living expenses. The future looked very uncertain if things continued like this. "I'm paying for our living expenses and the remittances to your mother," I countered angrily. "You know there's a limit to how much I can earn." "Remittances, it's just $2,300, right? Stop nagging. If you don't like it, leave my house," he said, hitting the table and storming out of the room. My husband trivialized the amount I worked hard to earn, calling it a mere $2,300. Our marital relationship had never been more discordant. Amidst this, unexpected good news arrived. Samuel had a chance to get a job at a company run by a friend of his mother. While the salary wasn't as high as his previous job, I was grateful he would be working at all. The trial period was set for 3 months. "I don't think this company suits my abilities," Samuel said reluctantly, "but it's hard to say no since my mom introduced me." In response to his words, I decided to encourage him. "As long as you're willing to work, that's fine. Do your best to secure formal employment." However, I couldn't have imagined that his new job would lead to further problems. Samuel left for work energetically every morning, but after a month, he started coming home late and sometimes didn't come home at all. His jacket smelled of an unknown woman's perfume. Furthermore, he didn't contribute his salary to our household, and even started withdrawing money from our joint account without permission. While continuing the remittances to my mother-in-law, I decided to stop depositing money into the joint account. This made Samuel furious, and he confronted me. "Why aren't you putting money in the account? The balance is almost zero. Where is your salary going?" he demanded. "You're not contributing to the living expenses," I replied. "Tell me how you're using the money." "Shut up," my husband burst out. "I have friends to socialize with. You wouldn't understand." "That's not right," I retorted. "Am I the only one to earn and manage our livelihood? If you contribute money, I will too." "This house is mine. It's only natural for you to contribute money," Samuel insisted. I was appalled by his insistence that I should use my earnings for his pocket money and pay for the remittances to his mother and our living expenses. Moreover, I suspected he was having an affair. Though I had no proof at that time, I decided to investigate his suspicious behavior. I couldn't afford a private investigator, so I had to do it myself. While Samuel was sound asleep, I decided to check his phone. He usually used fingerprint authentication. While he was asleep, I used his right-hand finger to unlock the phone, and it worked. Checking his phone, frequent exchanges with a woman named Judith became apparent. The content was shocking. "Really enjoyed our date today," one message read. "Wish we could be together forever. Would you consider marrying me? I'll get rid of my wife, wait for me. Can't wait to start our life in a new home." Such unbelievable conversations continued. I transferred important data to my own smartphone. After that, I headed to a specific location to find out who this Judith was. One day, after returning home from work, I found many bags piled up at the entrance. "What is all this?" I asked, confused. "I've decided to live with my mom instead of you, who don't do housework," Samuel said coldly. "You decided to live together without consulting me?" I asked. "This is my house. You have no right to complain about my decisions," my husband snapped, his voice sharp with anger. "Since I'm paying for the remittances and living expenses, I should have a say," I argued. "It's better with Mom here, so you should leave," Samuel declared. Samuel's cold response shocked me. My mother-in-law, who was present, also chimed in. "A wife who doesn't do housework is useless," she said, smiling as if she hoped I would be driven out. Realizing it was futile to continue with these people, I made my decision. "All right, I'll leave this house," I calmly replied with a smile. "Really? Are you serious?" Samuel asked, taken aback. "But I'll make sure you pay for your infidelity," I continued firmly. "Infidelity? What are you talking about?" Samuel began to get flustered. "I mean Judith, the 27-year-old receptionist at your workplace, right? You're thinking of inviting her to this house instead of me?" I accused him. "Don't be ridiculous. I can't believe you're entertaining such baseless fantasies," he shot back defensively. "But I do have proof," I countered. I showed him the screenshots of emails saved on my phone. The day before, I had gone to Samuel's workplace to dig up information about Judith, and caught them entering a hotel secretly, capturing the moment in photos. Seeing this, Samuel, realizing he had no way out, started making weak excuses. "We've been arguing a lot lately, and I'm really stressed. Mom says she can't take it anymore with such a wife," he stammered. "But that doesn't justify infidelity. Why would you do such a thing?" I asked, hurt and angry. "I couldn't help it. Judith understands me in a way you never could," Samuel declared. His words, enamored by a younger woman, filled me with disgust. The effort I had put in for such a man now seemed utterly futile. "That's enough. In return, you'll pay the compensation for your infidelity, and I'll claim it from Judith too," I said firmly. "I don't have money, you know that," Samuel replied defensively. "Then work with Judith to build a proper life. Your mom will help with the housework, right?" "Then there should be no problem," I retorted coldly. My mother-in-law, unaware of Judith's existence, was visibly shocked by this revelation, but quickly regained her composure and sharply declared, "A young and attractive woman like Judith is more suitable for our family than a terrible wife like you. Leave Samuel's house immediately." To her words, I calmly responded, "Then first, please sign this," and I took out a divorce paper I had prepared from my bag, urging my husband to sign. Samuel, confused, asked, "When did you prepare this document?" "The day you told me to leave the house. I got it right after you said that," I quietly answered. Samuel, surprised but ultimately resigned, signed the document. I also signed the divorce paper on the spot and said, "Then I'll submit this to the city hall. Regarding my belongings, I'll arrange for a moving company to transfer them as soon as I find a new place." "I want you out as soon as possible," my mother-in-law yelled at me. That day, I packed the necessary items in a bag and headed to my parents' house. They were surprised by my sudden return, but warmly welcomed me, understanding something from my expression. The next day, I took a few days off and started taking new actions. First, I submitted the divorce paper to the city hall and began looking for a lawyer for the divorce proceedings and compensation claims. I also started searching for a new place to live. It was a busy time, but I felt fulfilled, advancing my own life. My deepest wish was to have no further involvement with that in-law family. I found a stylish apartment suitable for a single person and asked a moving company to arrange the relocation. I returned home just for the day of the move. Samuel was at work, but his mother was there. The movers took out my belongings, furniture, and appliances one by one. "Are you taking everything? The house will be so empty," she said bitterly. "All of this was bought with my own money. When we got married, I used my savings to buy furniture and appliances to make our house a home. If the house is registered in Samuel's name, then these items are mine," I replied coolly. My mother-in-law couldn't argue and was visibly frustrated. After moving to a luxury apartment, I started enjoying living alone. I could use all my income for myself. Thanks to working overtime, I got promoted, and my salary increased. This lifestyle continued for about 3 months, and then I started receiving numerous calls from my mother-in-law. I regretted not blocking her, but finally gave in to her persistent calls. "Oh, Vanessa, finally I got through," she exclaimed. "What do you want?" I asked, irritated. "Please, can you come back?" she began pleading. "What? I thought you wanted me to leave," I said, surprised. "I'm sorry. I've reflected on it. I want you to send $2,300 to my account, like before," she continued. How self-centered she was. According to her, Samuel's workplace affair was exposed, and he couldn't secure regular employment, resorting to part-time jobs. Judith and Samuel had started living together, but she disliked living with his mother, who then returned to her old home. With no more remittances, she struggled to live on her pension alone. "I have nothing to do with you anymore. I refuse," I said firmly. I set my phone to reject her calls and blocked Samuel's number, wanting no further involvement. However, a few days later, Samuel ambushed me outside my workplace. "Vanessa, I'm sorry. Can we start over? I'm in trouble," he said, bowing on the street. Samuel explained he tried living with Judith, but she couldn't do housework. After the affair was discovered, he felt out of place at work and quit. Judith, tired of their financially challenging life and constant quarrels, quickly left him. "It's too late. I have no intention of seeing you again. If you ambush me again, I'll call the police," I said sharply. "Wait!" he shouted desperately. but I ignored him and hurried home. Later, through my lawyer, I received $30,000 in compensation and an additional $15,000 from Judith. I heard Samuel had resorted to borrowing money through dubious means and was now juggling several part-time jobs to pay off his debts. My mother-in-law had started working part-time again and was living frugally. They were at odds, blaming each other. Judith, after leaving the company and breaking up with Samuel, was working night shifts to repay her debts. Meanwhile, I adopted a small dog in my new apartment and am enjoying peaceful, happy days, looking forward to my next wonderful encounter.